to just encourage people, like Allison said, to get in on this early. I think people tend to wait till summer or right before school ends to start looking. Be Magic also has like a resource guide, and they always have a link for all these summer resources too. So I think that's another one. I think the school district too also has on their page, and DCYF also has like a great section for summer resources. So shameful plug, but we also offer our summer health education program. Youth earn minimum wage to come out for your youth ages 12 to 16. So it's a good way to put a little change in your 12-year-old's pocket at a young age. So
great. Not a shameful plug. We need that. This is why we are doing this. So please, you're doing good work. I want this to get as far and wide as possible. Randy?
Yeah, not much to add. Those are great resources. I want to double click on DCYF because they're very keen on students of color in particular in San Francisco, K through 8, having something to do. And so they have a great aggregate of resources out there. As a beacon provider at Malcolm X Academy, we provide 6 weeks of summer programming for our site, but also as a community-based organization, we've opened that up. And so we have been intentional given some of the trends that Joy mentioned. We know stuff happens, life happens, and you either forget or just, not able to find the right fit. We purposefully try to sort of scaffold out seats that are available, will be available in April and May, and have other partners like to have that heads up as well. So if you have folks that aren't able to sort of get out early and find, you're not going to be doomed if you don't do it, but the premier only because, resources are finite. But we actually are trying to partner with the other 3 elementary schools in Bayview to do something else with our Beacon work. So stay tuned for that. We're definitely trying to make something special happen for elementary schools in in Bayview. And then Aim High is an organization that has a great summer program out of Willie Brown, but they're very competitive. And I would suggest getting in. They already, actually, the deadline may have passed. But I would suggest looking at that ASAP. They have a very strong program, and I believe that's 6 or 7 weeks long as well.
Great. A question here: is it even too late to apply for schools for next year?
So as far as schools, January 11th was the deadline for the first round. So that one's already passed. We should be hearing March 18th on that week. Parents are going to get notification letters of which schools they've been assigned to. But if you're not happy with that assignment, or if you missed the first deadline, there's another deadline coming up, and that will be, I wrote it down, March 18th. Oh no, sorry, April 5th is the next deadline. And so there's rolling opportunities. And so, like I said, for people who missed the first deadline, or if you're not happy with the assignment that you got, you have an opportunity to say, I'd like another school better. And if I get it, then I'd switch. And that all of that is for April 5th. So I encourage families. Also, one really important thing is if you did get an assignment and you're not happy with it and you want to try for something else, make sure you register anyway, because sometimes parents, they think, oh, well, I don't really, that's not going to be my top choice. We're going to keep trying. And they forget. And then you can get bumped out of the system and have no school. And that's not where you want to be. But just so folks know, there's multiple opportunities. And I know it can be kind of nerve-wracking, but there's a lot of movement that happens. People that get placed in one school leave a space in a school maybe that you want. And so it's constantly shifting all the way through the first 2 weeks of school. And so just reach out. Parents for Public Schools is a great resource for enrollment. They'll give you advice. And there's also enrollment coaches. There's folks at the district in the EPC, which stands for the Educational Placement Center. And they can also explain the whole process so that it's clear for folks. And it's also online as well. There's a lot of information online.
Perfect. So I want to give those who have to go the opportunity to. We are going to, in addition to the questions that were just raised, I'm going to delve into some of the ones that are raised as part of the QA here. Vanessa, right. I'm concerned about safety.
Mm-hmm.
This is the reason why I left my prior school. I was bullied and the students still stayed at the school. So I left and went to Enchantment. I'm happy and safe. So I guess one of the big questions I have is what resources are there around dealing with bullying in school?
Well, I mean, I can answer that. There are, okay, schools need to be safe for all kids, right? And we know bullying happens at times, but there needs to be certain things in place at schools to ensure that all students are safe. And sometimes our district has a safe and supportive schools policy, which requires that staff are trained in how to handle conflict. We also, when it comes to conflict in schools, we also want to make sure that we're dealing with it in a way that educates kids and doesn't just push out kids that may be acting out or just having regular conflict. I mean, we all have conflict, but a lot of times Black and brown kids are over-identified as perpetrators when sometimes they are even targets. So we need to also make sure that when we're, as a school and as a district, we're handling things in a way that's both equitable and also helps communities to heal and, be safe and supportive for all kids. So I'm specifically focused on this. I think parents that are concerned should raise concerns to the principal. If the principal isn't handling it, they have the opportunity to come into the district and complain at the Office of Family Voice. But I'm also interested in hearing what's going on, because as a parent, we need to make sure our kids are safe, and kids can't learn if they're not safe. And I'm, committed to making sure that every school is a safe school for every kid. Like I said, stuff comes up in any context, but it should be dealt with in a way that families feel like it's being handled. And if it isn't, I want to know about it so that we can fix it. Because, all our kids deserve to feel safe in their schools.
Randy or Joy, do you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I'll actually chime in and then I have to run after this. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anietie, for the time to chat. I can maybe just share some of the experience we've had in our Beacon this year, because it's been very interesting, sort of inheriting some of what happens during the day in our after school program. And we have no way to step in during the day and really sort of regulate or sort of intervene without staff participation and permission from the principal. So in doing that, we've had to get creative. And one place we really, I think, have had an advantage is that we have a unique relationship with parents. And while it sometimes has been hard to find a common space or comfortable space for moderation between parents, because, if we don't know what the story is, we have 2 accounts from 2 children, and so obviously the other one started it every time, and parents are going to stick up for their kid, and so that adversarial sort of energy enters the space too. We've actually had some really interesting restorative circles, mini circles, and check-ins for the parents to get an understanding of it, see that we were trying to be proactive and outreaching and talking about this, face to face before it gets too deep. And then the parents intervene beautifully. They can either chastise the child or just give some direction about how to act or not. Because the bullying stuff usually is just something between children that can be communicated through. And oftentimes communication channels are blocked for one reason or another, because somebody didn't get a phone call out on time during the school day or what have you. And so I would say, in addition to the day staff, who sometimes are stretched thin when it comes to getting stuff done during the day, I would tap into your Beacon provider as somebody that could potentially step in and be that referee. Because, sometimes these situations are quick, sometimes they're not, but we definitely want to be, we want to bring parents in as quick as possible. That's been our solution. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Randy. And I know that we are over time. There's just a few more that I'd love to get to for those who can stay on. One really great question. Thank you so much, Linda, for this question. What resources can you offer or recommend to deal with systemic racism in our schools? And I actually want to chime in on this because this is so important. When I was a kid, I would literally remember my parents going in and talking to my, like, doesn't matter what level of schooling it was, constantly. I literally remember my dad arguing with the principal saying, you are not going to move my kid out of this classroom, right? And when I was a kid, I had no idea. Being older, I realized what he was dealing with were people who didn't know what to do with a black kid, right? And I feel specifically that because of what my parents did and their unwavering advocacy, like they were like, you ain't moving, right? Nothing's going to happen. You were going to pick on my child. That whole thing allowed me to do the things that I'm doing. But yeah, this is incredibly important. And I'd love to sort of hear from both, Allison, and Joy on this question of what resources can you offer or recommend to deal with systems of racism in our schools?
Like you, Anietie, I mean, my mom was a single parent, but she definitely was the one that my school was afraid of. And so I think I got my voice from her in terms of speaking out about like the injustice. But I think we're also in a school district that recognizes this systemic racism and is actively trying to do things to address it, like with our school board, with working with teachers, working with the African American Leadership Initiative, with my brothers and sisters keeper. Like, the beauty of being a part of SFUSD is that we are aware of this and we are trying to make real change in how we address it, how we interact with our students, with our families, and trying to have a sensitivity around it while getting the work done. So yeah, I think there are a lot of things, and I'm sure Allison can speak to this a bit more about like how the school district is trying to address the systemic racism that particularly like our community has seen. I mean, like, schools had to deal with this when my parents were growing up. So this is like 60 some odd years, 60 to 70 years of this systemic racism showing its impact on our community in San Francisco. But I think this is the time that we are actually trying to make some changes.
So I want to just add to that. I think yes and no. I think that's one of the things that the Bayview is doing really well. And because of leadership, I mean, it's what's upsetting to me in a way is parents feel like they have to choose, especially Black families, feel like they have to choose between a school that is well-resourced and physically maybe safe and academically challenging, and a school that affirms their child's culture and identity. And so Bayview is, I mean, what's amazing is I did a thing with families at Carver and also at Peabody, and they're very different schools, and parents, they wanted to see what it was like at each school. And we had a very diverse group of families. And what was interesting was, in some ways, Carver is doing more for students. They have more social workers. They have more family liaisons. They have more outreach. They've got an amazing computer lab. They're really investing in their kids. And they've got diverse books in spades, right? And they're celebrating Black history, right? That's not a question. They have, their PTA is a Black parent group, right? And then you've got other parts of the city that are struggling to talk about equity. There's resistance to celebrate Black history, right? And so I think, parents shouldn't have to choose between a culturally safe and intellectually safe school and, we want to have our there's the woman who's in charge of she's the assistant superintendent of the Bayview, was an exceptional leader. She started Bayview Ignite. She got teachers engaged. She talks about culturally competent teaching and bias. That's like a part of what you do if you're working in the Bayview, but it hasn't necessarily translated to other parts of the city. She is now moving up though to be a leader and look over all the schools. So I'm looking forward to that. That's a positive change. And at the same time, parents need to lead the change. And that's why I've been an active member of the APAC. If you're a parent in the district, you can join the African American Parent Advisory Council. There are some amazing parent leaders, and they've been advocating for anti-implicit bias training for staff across the district and, diverse reading lists and all those things. And so it really, you can't do it alone as a parent, and you can be that one parent that's asking for something, and then you can be characterized as the angry Black parent who's complaining, or you can work as a collective, and that could be 3 parents, really. And I've done it. Like 3 parents is a Black parent group. And when we say what we want, all of a sudden there's an impetus, for change. And so that's my commission. That's what I'm working on. I don't think parents should have to lead it, but I also think that they've been parents, including me, have been a very important part in shifting that culture, because we do know that there are some communities that feel like they're doing fine. They're getting good scores and they're, quote, good school, but they may not be doing some of the really innovative stuff in terms of unpacking bias and talking about anti-Blackness and white supremacy. I mean, you got to be able to name it, and they aren't interested in that because it's uncomfortable. We all just want to get along, right? So, like I said, in some ways, I feel like that is something that we need to celebrate more in the Bayview, is that teachers are having those conversations, and they are getting training and support, and families can celebrate that and should be celebrating that they are actually pioneering work that we're still lagging in some of those West Side schools that everybody says, or other schools that, folks say are, quote, better. I would, disagree. I think we got a lot of work to do across the district, but the Bayview has a lot to offer and should be celebrated for the work that it's doing.
Great, thank you. And one final question. This is to Joy. How do all the Bayview CBOs collaborate to ensure services are not being duplicated?
That's a good question.
I can't remember who asked that. I was talking about it, but we are part of different collaboratives, right? But also, like, the importance of having what seems like duplicate services is that we are divided physically as a community, meaning like we have some turf issues, and so youth and families may not be able to move as freely. Also, like, we have transportation issues, we have access issues, and so it's important that we do have multiple agencies who can provide services in these different areas. So where it may seem redundant, it is also like very important that we are like making sure that we are addressing different people in different circumstances. So if you're up on the hill, you should also have access to health, to wellness, to literacy programs, to after school programs, just as much as you would in Double Rock, right? We should also have, or Alice Griffith, we should also have these services available throughout Bayview, given or being produced by different organizations. So I think it is important to really talk about how we have these sort of issues where there's different communities that need different things by different people, right? Like, it's important to have the API community. I'm losing my words now. Our API community represented, right? That might be something that is very culturally specific for them, but it's the same service as like Hunters Point Foundation might provide. But it's just really important to have these different organizations giving these different services out.
Right. And with that, I want to really thank all of you for being on this panel today. Thank you so much. Thank you all. And there have been just a huge number of you who are sort of participants, really sort of engaging in the conversation. So I just want to say, from a One Bayview Speaks perspective, this has just been really great. We've dropped some resources into the chat. We will be incorporating that in our next One Bayview Insider newsletter like that goes out. And I just want to sort of give a round of applause to everyone who's sort of been part of this. Again, thank you so much. Really, I couldn't have thought of 3 better people for the first one to really talk about Bayview excellence. So really, Allison, Joy, Randy, really, really do appreciate you all today.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you, Anietie. Thank you to our community folks who came out to watch the webinar. Appreciate y'all.
Perfect.